Yeah, so that's what my mower had been doing for the last couple of weeks. I just kind of left it alone. I was checking all kinds of things, thinking it was a safety switch somewhere, thinking it had to be some complex problem that I was missing. I should have just started from the beginning. You probably heard in order to have a fire, you need basically air, a fuel source, and some type of ignition. Combustion engines, there's a very simple defined process for troubleshooting and ruling out a starting issue, and that's what I'm hoping to cover with you today. So if you have any type of combustion engine, at least a simple combustion engine on lawnmower, any type of lawn equipment, you have a starting problem, you start with the basics: fuel, air, and spark. And I'll be damned, my issue wound up being the coils. First time I've had that happen to me, and I've had equipment for many years. I just been lucky. But I'm going to show you my troubleshooting, what I went through, walk you through the simple steps, and show you how I came up with the problem and ultimately solved it. First is the fuel line. I had gone through this before many times, troubleshooting fuel clogs at the fuel filter. So I basically separate each side of the line, and you separate the line from the fuel filter on this right side, which is going to see, I guess, verify that the fuel's flowing from the gas tank, at least up to the filter. And you'll see here in just a minute the gas is flowing freely. I do have a receptacle, a bowl or something underneath to catch the fuel. I did that prior to making the video. I have pliers to take off the retaining clips. It was definitely going to be difficult to do this one with one hand and video with the other hand. As much as I could, I tried to, but I had to prop the camera up to get most of this. So now you see I took off the left side line from the fuel filter, and I verified fuel's coming through from the gas tank to the filter, and now through the filter to the other line. That left side line is going to be feeding the carburetor. So that's all good. Next thing I wanted to check, I did check the air. I mean, it's generally not, unless you've never maintained the air filter, it's not going to be clogged, from what I found, to the point where it's stopping the motor from running. It probably will run rough and bad, but I've never had an issue where there was an air problem, really. The spark, I checked the spark plug. It looked pretty good to me, but from trying to start the motor, it was wet. So, I had taken out the scraper, or the wire brush, scraped the plug, cleaned it up, put it back in, and same thing. So next thing I was checking under the seat here. This is the safety switch for under the seat, and I was thinking maybe that was acting up. Maybe my not enough weight, or I wasn't propped on the seat properly. But I put that 50-pound weight onto the seat because I'm only one person. I had to figure out a way to troubleshoot this thing properly. I propped the plug up on something where it's touching metal. It's plugged into the lead, to the spark plug wire, and I have it touching metal, and I have the seat connector shorted out or connected, as though I was sitting on the mower. Now, this is not recommended. It's dangerous to be trying to start the mower like this, but I still didn't have any spark. At this point, the spark is obviously the issue. I stopped thinking about safety switches and everything else. The PTO, the blade engagement, disengagement, that all seemed to be working properly to me. So I looked up where the coil is on my particular mower, and there's an engine case or cover right here, and there's 3 bolts there. I'll put everything in the description on my mower. It's 638 RL Yard Machines MTD, and we need to expose the coil. That's the next step. That's the next thing in line to troubleshoot and check. And again, this was my first experience getting to this point to actually check the coil. But everything thus far is pointing to the coil. So I felt pretty positive about going through this troubleshooting in these steps. Now you can see the coil here. You can see this gap. The gap is at some specification. I've read you could use a business card. I'm pretty good with doing things by eye. Probably not recommended. People have shown on videos using a feeler gauge. I didn't even look up the spec. I just wanted to see, first of all, what it looked like, the gap, what it should be, or if it looked way out of line or something that didn't make sense. But you can see the gap between the flywheel and the magnetic leads on the coil. I'm thinking I'm going to replace this thing, so I got to match that gap with the replacement. And that's actually what I wound up doing. I looked up my engine, actually, because you want to go by the engine for looking up which coil goes on it. And I had a Tecumseh engine. This was a 1/4-inch socket that actually fit the bolts. There's 2 bolts that were holding the coil down. It is magnetic. So once you loosen the bolts, that coil's going to want to snap into the engine if you have it lined up with the flywheel where the magnetic parts are on the flywheel. This is the replacement coil I ordered, less than $10. I was happily surprised to see. I ordered it online. Looks visually like it's the right one. So I went ahead and started the process of swapping out the coil. There's one electrical wire lead. I carefully removed that with the needle nose. Once the lead is off, I was able to completely remove the old coil from the mower, as you see here, and take the new coil, place it on the mounting blocks, lining up the lead the same way the old one was. Take note of how it was mounted. That lead was on the bottom of the coil, so it's facing down when it was mounted. So I flipped the coil over, place it on the mounting block, and put the bolts in and tighten the bolts so they're snug so that you can get that gap set properly. It's magnetic again, so if you have it lined up with the flywheel, which you need to in order to adjust the gap, it's going to want to naturally attract into the flywheel. So there's a little bit of playing with it, and as long as those bolts are snug enough to keep it in place but yet allow you to move it, but stop it from moving on its own magnetically, you'll be okay. But I set the gap by eye, figuring as long as it's pretty darn close and it doesn't hit, I should be in good shape, and it turned out to be so. Set this up, set the gap, tighten those 1/4-inch mounting bolts, and then insert the spark plug, reattach the lead wire to the plug, and continue with the reassembly of the engine cover and anything else I might have taken off or looked at. And the job was done. It was really, really simple once you figure out what exactly is going on. So here you can see the gap. I tightened up the coil to the point where it won't move anymore. And the gap is clearing, but yet close, so that it can activate the coil, with a magnetic charge as it's spinning. So next, I want to test my theory. Before I put everything back together, I have my same setup. I'm cranking the motor, and you could see it's sparking. So that was the issue. It was definitely the coil. Immediately I had spark. And then you're good to go. I hope you enjoyed enjoyed this edition of Problem Solved. Continue to watch. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. 3/8 was the size of the bolt. Take off the engine cover in case you're wondering. And thanks again. See you on the next one.